Good afternoon, Mr. Prada. I'm here at Mullinax Ford. I'm looking at this Ford Edge. Here's the VIN number. Air filter was brand new. The brake reservoir is slightly over full. The engine coolant is just about full. I'd say it's just slightly low. It's just slightly under the minimum. Engine oil was clean and full. And I looked down into the valve train as best I could. I'm not seeing any visible sludge or varnish. As you can see, there's still silver metal. I'm seeing virtually no varnish at all. Certainly no sludge. The camshaft also looks decent. That would be the intake camshaft that we're seeing here. I'm seeing only 2 lobes, but the one I'm able to touch is smooth. I'm not seeing any scoring on the camshaft lobes from the intake camshaft that I could actually see. Transmission is going to be sealed and will not have a dipstick. So the engine is cold. We're going to give it a cold start. I'm going to put the phone in the engine compartment here. So I'm hearing an exhaust rattle back here. Almost sounds like something might be loose in the muffler. I mentioned you had a donut spare tire, temporary. Everything looks back. There's scuffs, scratches on the plastic. There's an impact of the rear bumper right there. There's scuffing. Looks like somebody used touch-up paint to cover that up. Looks like there's some scuffs here, right behind the rear wheel. A dent and a scratch. This is the driver's side rear passenger door jamb. There's a dent. This rubber trim needs to be pushed back up. That might have come out when they were cleaning, I don't know. This door panel is okay. None of the doors are rusted. All the windows work. This door panel had some scuffing and scraping of the softer material. The rear seats are all good. No tears, no burns. 60/40 split works. The AC works. I mentioned there's a passenger airbag sensor fault for the occupant. And you can see this harness has been disconnected. I don't know if somebody was messing here or what. This sensor right here might actually be the occupancy sensor. You see there's that tube that runs to it. It detects if there's weight sitting on the cushion. You got a glove box, owner's manual. Center console, 2-tiered. You have a cubby up here. Tested the radio. All of the speakers work. We'll try the heat. I mentioned there was a stain on the headliner, but there is no sunroof, and the only thing that could possibly leak would be the shark fin antenna. And the headliner back here does not have a stain, so I think that's a stain that came from inside the vehicle. All 4 tires are Michelin Defender with 2021 date codes. The first number is the week and the second is the year, so that would be 33rd week of 2021. They all match. You could hear that exhaust rattle again. Has a capless fuel. Has a capless fuel fill. And I said the driver's some scratches and dings and small dents in this area, the door jamb. The heat works. We'll go back to AC. We got the headlights on. I'm just looking for the hazard button. Alright, I don't know where they put the hazard button in here. I'll have to find that later, but alright. We got a left marker light and turn signal. We got a marker light. You got scuffing, scratches on the front bumper. Scuffs, scratches. The bumper cover was actually torn right here. You can see there's a crack. Headlights and high beams work. Let me try the right turn signal. Right turn signal works. I was saying earlier, when I originally started the vehicle, the engine was very loud. And it seemed to be loud in the vicinity of the... That seems to have quieted down. Engine oil level was full and clean. I didn't find any sludge in the valve train. You could see that's the intake camshaft. There's plenty of oiling in there. So the valve train looked good. I didn't see any sludge. They're also missing the engine cover. See this little nub, and there's probably more somewhere else. There should be a decorative thing that goes over the engine. I mentioned engine coolant is full. You can see it's right up to the minimum. The brake fluid was a little over full, and the transmission has no dipstick. I scanned for faults, and it has a passenger side restraint sensor, as well as a right mirror heater, a right front puddle lamp, a right blind spot warning indicator, and switch illumination. And that would be that mirror over there. So this may have a blind spot issue with this side view mirror. Horn works. Front windshield wipers work. Rear works. and rear cleaner works. And the driver's side seats. Put my bag back here. I think the cushion has a little bit of wear. You could see there's like a line here. I mean, think about it. This is where somebody was sitting the majority of the time this vehicle was being driven. I didn't feel any wetness on any of the floors. There's your inside fuel panel. Back in there. Apparently you got to get that at an angle. So, almost ready for a test drive. Alright, we're about to pull out into traffic here. We're up to 60. So like I was saying earlier, when I initially started the engine, there was a very loud rattle from the top end of the engine, and it seemed to quiet down over time as I idled the engine for probably 45 minutes while I was inspecting at least. There's no engine faults. There's only faults related to the passenger mirror, passenger side view mirror, blind spot sensor, and an airbag sensor, and a puddle light, and some kind of a switch illumination. So there are no fuel pressure codes or engine faults, but there is a common problem with some of these Ford engines, and I'm going to have to look back at the service bulletins. The camshaft drives the high pressure fuel pump in these vehicles, and there is a babbitt that wears. There's like a bucket that the camshaft drives and pushes a plunger which makes fuel pressure through the high pressure fuel pump, and sometimes you can get wear of the camshaft or the babbitt in that area. So I just wouldn't want you to get stuck with that. This engine just didn't sound like it should. Another couple items there missing: the engine cover, and like I said, there's an airbag fault regarding a occupancy sensor for the passenger. And under the passenger seat, I noticed that there was a harness that was just laying there. It wasn't fastened to the bottom of the seat like it should be. And so now, the only unfortunate part now is we're in rush hour traffic as we're getting on to, it's 4:35 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. But I really want to find out if this transmission has any torque converter shutter. I would like to turn off somewhere, but there's lots and lots of traffic. So if I feel anything else, I will start another video. Alright, so I'm driving along. I've been driving for about 3 miles. I don't feel any torque converter shutter, but I also can't look at the condition of the transmission oil because this transmission does not have a dipstick. The only way to do that would be to remove the fill plug or the vent possibly. But honestly, at 100,000 miles, 100,088 miles, which we are at right now, I mean, the transmission fluid ideally would have been changed twice. Have they done that? I don't know. At this dealership in Apopka, there's a gentleman by the name of Brian Francis, I believe. He's the used car sales manager. He was not here today, so I dealt with the general sales manager, and I don't know any other details about this vehicle. So, and I know you're dealing with another saleswoman as well. So, it would be nice if they could give you a history, if they have history on file. But like I was explaining to you earlier, that the rattle and the tapping that I heard from the top of the engine was a little bit concerning. And it wasn't just an initial cold start valve train rattle. It continued for a while. So I would just be concerned about that. Personally, if I was buying this vehicle, I wouldn't. Because I just dealt with an engine failure of my own on my GMC with only 88,000 miles, which ended up being a $10,000 repair, and I perform immaculate maintenance, and I don't drive harshly. I don't tow. So you could see how these engine repairs these days can add up very, very quickly. And I know the used car market, I mean, it's not what it used to be. You're paying, what, $12,000 now for 100,000 miles. And I mean, if you go to CarMax, you're looking at around 10,000 miles or $10,000 for a tiny car, smaller than this, a teeny tiny car. Think of something like a Nissan Versa. Those are selling for 9 to 10 grand with sometimes as much as 110 or 120,000 miles. So the used car market is ridiculous. So I know that could put you in a pickle, because if you're going to be moving here, you don't want to be spending a lot of money on a car, but then you don't want to be buying an inexpensive car that is going to require substantial repairs. A warranty, if Ford would provide you a warranty, which if this is a certified vehicle, I believe they do, but I'm surprised, how could they be certifying this vehicle if it has a check engine light? And the brake reservoir was slightly overfull, because I believe they put new pads on it and they never removed the additional brake fluid that was present from the pads that were worn previously. You know, the pistons in the calipers are going to be more extended, so there's going to be more room for fluid. And when they push those caliper pistons in to install the new thicker pads, well, that fluid ends up in the reservoir. So I'm just surprised this is a certified vehicle with an airbag light, considering that's a safety issue. So there's just a couple of red flags with this Ford Edge that I'm noticing. And like I said, if it were me, I would not buy it. And like I said, at least a transmission fluid flush would be in order. Maybe a coolant flush too. Like I said, I don't know any of the history of this vehicle. Did the previous owners perform routine maintenance? But I will say the brakes feel great. They may have done rotors too. Everything looked pretty new. It looked like new pads and rotors, possibly. New pads for sure. The brakes feel great. But there's a couple of anomalies here with that engine rattle that I heard at startup. So both of the side view mirrors, they work, but like I said, let's see, if I put my right turn signal on, I am not getting a blind spot warning, which I should be, because I'm in stop traffic. There's cars everywhere. So I think there's a blind spot monitor fault, which was confirmed through the fault codes which were present. So once again, how did they certify this vehicle with faults like that regarding safety functions, blind spot monitoring? You know, like I said, there's red flags. Also, the AC is ice cold. I'm freezing. As you can see, outdoors is 76 degrees Fahrenheit. I have only lived in Florida a year and a half myself. I'm originally from the Chicago area. and I do not mind the heat. So I'm going to take this car back to the dealership, and that just about concludes this inspection. And like I said, I think I said it 3 times now, if this was me, I wouldn't buy this car. There's a cruise back to the dealer. We just rolled over 100,090 miles. 100,090. I went 5 miles so far on this road test. All right, on a final note, I'm at 100,092 miles so far. There is kind of a clunk with the transmission. I'm getting some odd upshifts and downshifts occasionally. And I don't know, there is, like if I'm cruising along, I feel like I'm getting some abnormalities in transmission behavior, but it's very light. So I'm here at the dealer, pulling in, and I've just driven 8 miles. So my opinion remains unchanged. I would not buy this.